Hi, everyone. My name is Chris. Just want to walk you through in terms of one of the best countries that I have visited. I've visited quite a few countries in my lifetime, but America is truly one of my favorites. Um, Mainly because I think it's purely untouched, and there's so much of greenery and nature to see. God's creation is just a blessing, and by God's grace, in the last 5 years, me and my wife and kids have visited 40 states. So America has 50 states and one union territory, which is Washington, D.C., and we've covered 40 states out of this. Here's a small picture over here, which kind of gives you what each states are, the names, and what they're famous for. Um, I'm generally an outdoor person, and that's probably because my dad was in the army, and we constantly kept moving places, sometimes as fast as 6 months. So we love nature. So as part of that, me and my wife share that common, a goal where we love traveling and we explore places. One of the so when we travel, there are two things that we could look at. One is outdoor. The second one is visiting a city. I will touch base on both of them. Outdoors, the best things that you can do outdoor is either a national park or a state park. I will go more into the national park. So here are some hyperlinks that is available as part of this presentation, which kind of gives you an idea of how and what are the national parks. The map, which shows you where these national parks are located, some of the facts of these national parks, pictures, which gives you some of the most breathtaking pictures. In fact, if you're on the Windows platform and you have, the picture of the Grand Canyon, that's actually taken from the Lower Antelope Canyon. Yeah, I'm just going to walk you through these things. So the first one is the national park. So this is, oops, sorry. So I'm going to go into the national park website. I'm going to share my screen to switch my screen rather. All right. So this is, oops.
Okay, now it's back. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, sorry. So this is talking of the Grand Canyon. There's a picture from the Grand Canyon. This is Yellowstone National Park, where you can see the lavas and hot water. This is Acadia National Park, which is in Maine. This is the Olympic National Park that I talked of, which you have all three ecosystems in one place, which amazed me. I could see snow. I got rain. That's the rainforest, and I had the beach, all three in one place, which amazed me because I went to the beach, then I went into the rain, and then I went up into the snow. So yeah, so another national park, the Grand Teton National Park. This is one of my favorites. When I saw this view, this amazed me, and I kind of imagined me having this house and looking up every morning at those mountains. So this is truly amazing. And the Grand Teton National Park is right next to Yellowstone National Park, so you have to actually, if you're driving from the south, you actually go into Grand Teton and then you get into Yellowstone. So I'm not going to cover all of it, but these links are available. I do want to jump into the national park, the official website, which is the nps.gov. Now, when I say national park, these are officially designated national parks, which are protected by the government of America. National Park Services also have national monuments, national historic parks, national islands, but that's like a whole different, if you finished all the national parks and you want to explore everything else, there's like more than hundreds of them. But this is the website where you can actually find out which state, what park is located, opening hours, how much it costs to get in. Speaking of cost, most of the national parks, they do charge you for getting in. The cost can range from anywhere from $15 to around about $45 per vehicle. But something that I do is I just pick up an annual pass where you pay around about $80 and you can basically go how many more times you want to any national park in America. So yeah, this is their website as the nps.gov.index. I'm going to go back into my presentation. Okay. I just want to, I have put in some facts over here in terms of the national park. I'm just going to see if I have opened. Okay, I'm just going to go back. So these are some facts which, you know, if you have interest in learning about them. So the National Park Service protects around 84 million acres of wild landscape and historic site. Yellow National Park is the oldest national park, founded in 1872. The second U.S. national park, which no longer actually is a national park, is the Mechanic National Park in Michigan. That was something that I did not know, but I've been to Michigan, but did not visit this place, but now it's now a state park. The 10 highest waterfall in the world is located in the Yosemite National Park. One of also my favorites, in fact, all of them are my favorites. But just to give you what Yosemite looks like. So this is what Yosemite would look like. Pictures don't do justice, but you know, this is the view that I saw of Yosemite. It's just beautiful. You have an entrance from the west, which is from the California side, and you can have another entrance from the east, which is from the Nevada side. But yeah. And Death Valley, Nevada. The good thing is that we went into the Death Valley in November, so we did not experience 134 degrees. But if you go there in July, they say that if you keep a popcorn on a sheet of metal, it will pop. That hot it is, just by the you know, sun's heat. All right, I'm not going to go through all the facts, but that's just an idea, you know, in terms of where we are with the facts. In case you're interested to know or to see some of the pictures, sorry, I'm just copying it. I'll just show you some. Getty Images are one of the places where you can go and check out different pictures of a national park. So this is Yosemite. This is Redwood National Park. Redwood National Park is in California. It has it harbors the tallest tree in the world. When I stood in front of it and I looked up, I looked like an ant in front of it. At the same time, very close to Redwood, there is Sequoia National Park, where you will have the most fattest tree. General Sherman is from the Sequoia National Park. So this is all the Grand Canyon, the Arches National Park, the Bryce Canyon National Park, Alaska, Arches. So some of the best images, you know, that's truly remarkable and, you know, breathtaking. So Getty Images is also there, so that link is also put up. Now I want to kind of shift my focus into those who are not so much outdoor, but more like visiting cities. So for those of you who don't like, you know, being outdoors and just like, you know, traveling to cities, here are some broad links that I put in, which talks of the top 10 most visited cities by foreign travelers, the best cities to visit in the US, road trips. We are all living in close to New York, so there are road trips designated where you can travel from here in the East Coast, as well as if you want to drive all the way to the West Coast. So there are some links over here. And then, of course, safety. I just want to quickly maybe just do the first link, which just talks about the 10 most visited cities by foreign travelers. So I'm just going to talk on my screen. Oh, seems like it did not copy. Okay. Before we move into 10 most visited cities, remember New York City is going to be there on this list. That's one of the places that people from all across the world do visit. The first picture that you see over here is actually from San Francisco. Truly amazing, and I was a bit scared when I drove actually in San Francisco because you just go up and down and up and down, and the roads are so narrow. And for one of the cars that I chose to, which I will talk about, Alamo, you get to pick your own car. So even though I selected a mid-size SUV, but in Alamo you can pick your own car, and they so happen to park an Expedition in a mid-size SUV. So I ended up driving an Expedition, or probably it was a Ford Explorer. Used a Ford Explorer, and I drove that big, huge car in these narrow roads, and that freaked me out as I drove up and down to those narrow roads and wondering if somebody's going to bang into me. But that's a picture of San Francisco. Beautiful place. Definitely, you know, the San Francisco Bridge, the Alcatraz. Definitely, you know, definitely the tram. Those of you from India and who have visited Calcutta, I mean, it kind of reminds you of that. So. Boston. Boston has a rich history and culture and education. There's definitely a place which is probably 6.5 hours of drive from here to Boston. Chicago, kind of like a hub for industry and you know, a lot of art, museums, science. Chicago is another place in Illinois which would be worth a visit. The kidney bean, which is very famous, which you may have seen. Washington, D.C., our own very own Washington, D.C. I highly recommend visiting Washington, D.C. during springtime to see, you know, when the flowers blossom, the cherry blossom. They're so beautiful. Highly recommend. Honolulu, of course. Hawaii. Everyone wants to visit Hawaii, so that's another place that people do visit. Vegas. Vegas is also, you know, a place where it's titled as the Sin City of America, and people go there for casinos. We have been to Vegas a couple of times, but mostly because which we get amazing deals to go into Vegas. And so that has been kind of like our go-to place to travel into the West Coast. I've got flights as cheap as $20 from here. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but Vegas has been, we've traveled 3 or 4 times into the Vegas airport. And also another thing in Vegas is that the rental cars are very cheap. I've already talked about San Francisco. Orlando, Disney, Universal Studios, SeaWorld is all in Orlando, Florida. So if you are you know, a Disney fan, I grew up seeing Disney. So when I came here to the US, even though my kids were very small and had no idea who Disney was, I wanted to go, me and my wife wanted to go and see Disney. And something ironic happened was my daughter was small, and I think we were going to take a picture with Cinderella. And my daughter told Cinderella, or the person who's acting Cinderella, who is she? And she gave a big frown, thinking that, whoa, you come to Disneyland, you don't know who I am. So, you know, anyway, those were moments. So yeah, Orlando, definitely. Los Angeles, where Hollywood is. The Griffith Park Observatory, very beautiful. If you ever able to get a chance to go to the Griffith Park, it's an observatory, kind of gives you a beautiful view. And also, as you're in the Los Angeles, one of the road trips is from Los Angeles through San Francisco is on the Pacific Drive, which passes through Big Sur. Absolutely amazing. And I highly recommend that you drive from San Francisco to Los Angeles and not the other way around, because when you're driving from San Francisco to Los Angeles, you're actually facing the sea while you drive down. So it's so beautiful. You're just driving down with the sea on the right-hand side. Miami, Florida, absolutely. Beaches. One of the things that amazed me when I went to Miami was nobody told me that the water in Miami was clear, crystal clear. So I had the mindset that, oh, it's another New Jersey beach. The water is going to be, not so great. And we went to the beach, and for some reason, I thought that I'm not going to enter the beach. It's probably just going to be New Jersey beach. And when I saw the clear beach, and I regretted not taking my swimming costume to go swim in a beautiful sea, which is clear water. So definitely, and of course there are, if you like partying, there are clubs and pubs that you can hop in, hop off. And of course, New York City. I don't want to cover New York City. We all know about New York City, our one and only Big Apple. Okay, I'm just gonna go back to my deck and see if I want to cover anything. Yeah, I do want to touch base in terms of road trips. Let me just. So one thing you have to remember is that America has an amazing infrastructure, and road trips. I highly recommend that you get your driving license, rent a car, and you can basically cover most of the Northeast. So Time Out actually lists out some of the 10 best road trips from New York City. It talks about Cold Springs, New York, which is upstate, Philadelphia, of course. Philadelphia has where the Declaration of Independence was signed. Gives you a lot of history about how America was formed. Berkshires, Massachusetts, rural area, farmlands, absolutely beautiful. Rhode Island. If you want to see mansions and architectures and all that stuff, you got to go to Rhode Island, because you would see mansions and which is a lot of architecture for those who love and into that. The Saratoga Springs, upstate New York again. Niagara Falls also up there if you want to go. Alexandria, Virginia. It's also very close. Cape Cod, for those who love fishing, Cape Cod is a great place to go fishing. Also lovely beach out there. Lake Placid, definitely highly recommend, especially with fall coming up now. Do visit Lake Placid. You'll get some of the best fall colors, not just in Lake Placid, but even if you go to New Hampshire, Vermont, Maine, absolutely. Some of our best memories of fall colors are actually from New Hampshire. Stowe is another place where you go for fall colors. Again, breathtaking to see all the colors. Bar Harbor, Maine, Acadia. It actually kind of reminded me of Ireland. The way, when you get into Acadia National Park and when you drive around about it, and as you see the sea, it kind of gave me a picture when I drove through Dublin. So it just brought my memories back from Dublin. So pictures don't do justice. Highly recommend that you try. Bar Harbor, Maine from here is around about 9.5 hour drive. Yeah, I definitely can make it. Okay, I'm just going to go back to my deck. In terms of safety, one of the things, I'm not going to go into the safety. There is a link for safety. One of the things in safety is as you visit cities, especially cities, just be careful where you're going. Always be with a group of people. Make sure that you have the ID card in your purse in case you haven't got your driving license yet. Use your passport because one of the common things that people would end up asking is, wherever you go, whether you visit a museum, whether you visit the hotel, wherever your ID needs to be on top of you. Every city has places where you shouldn't visit. Stay away from them. Yeah, always, keep your belongings and, your bag, everything, with you, and try not to flash money or try not to draw attention to yourself. If you get into a mode where someone is, you know, just for some reason suddenly starts shouting at you or yelling at you or any kind of you know, unwanted conversation, I would just straight away walk away from them. Do not get into a conflict or arguing, or you know, because that just leads to unnecessary outcome. Okay, I'm going to go back to my deck. Okay, I'm assuming you can see my deck. The other thing, apart from the cities, which we just covered, I just wanted to touch base in terms of RVing and camping. One of the amazing things that this country offers is that you can rent actually a bus and you can live in the bus. I haven't seen that in India, but I was amazed and fascinated, and I said, I want to do it. So there is a link over here. You can rent an RV through cruiseamerica.com. I'm not going to open into it. It's just because of time, just being conscious of time. I want to leave some Q&A sessions towards the end, but you can go there, you can rent. Renting in summers are expensive. It can be as expensive as $250. I rented during springtime. So if you rent it during spring or during fall or winter time, you could get it as cheap as $100 per day. And then you also have rvshare.com. rvshare.com is basically people who own RV. They basically rent it out to you. So that's what RV share is. You know, there are terms and conditions in terms of how you have to pay, you know, and then the cleaning. We have to remember that all of this, you're expected to clean and give the vehicle as is, as how you picked it up. So gas full. If you have used the generator, they're going to charge you for the generator. So yeah, I also have included tips in terms of first-time rental in RV, and also some of the popular places from New York where you can drive your RV. I do also recommend, which I have put in the links over here, is that when you rent an RV, you obviously want to take that RV and stay in a state park or a national park, which will have facilities where you can bring your RV and park it in, and they would allow you to connect to the electricity, to the water connection, to your sewage. So your RV can hook up to all these three things, and you are technically set. So what we did was we took the RV and we drove down to the Delaware Seashore State Park, where we camped on the beach. And we had all these three. They provided the water, they provided the electricity, and the sewage. And for those who are not so much into RVing and who like tent camping, you know, this is a link which kind of gives you tent camping. So tent camping is a very different experience from RVing. You have to pick up your own tent, you know, pitch it. You need to be able to sleep in the wild. So in America, you can also, these are again the links, the Reserve America or the KOA.com or the recreation.com, where you can book campsites where you can pitch your own, where you can pitch your own tent. I do, maybe I just want to see if I can just go and quickly just talk about, yeah, camping for beginners. So this is how, you know, camping in the wild looks like. So you have your tent, you have your backpacks, you know, lanterns, your cooking gear, your chair, and all of that over here. And then you just pitch the tent and just enjoy. You sleep in the open. So this is some of the things that it shows that you need to have: the tent, the sleeping bag, sleeping pads. So you can't put your sleeping bag straight on the floor and sleep. You need to have like a padding before it. So that's the sleeping pad. So you put the sleeping pad and then the sleeping bag. Of course, the lighting, the stove, the cooler. You get portable fans which you can hook up on the ceiling and actually just, you know, blows air on it. Pots, plates, cups, camping chairs. So all that stuff, and of course your toiletries. So this link is a great link, just to give you an idea. So I was doing something like this. Me and my wife, we were actually cooking we have a similar stove over here from Coleman, which we camped for a couple of days, and that's the propane tank that you see over here. Okay. Do you want to go back to my deck? And Okay, this is the last thing that I want to cover is the tips. If you have not got the driving license, you have to get your driving license. Without driving license, you would not be able to enjoy the beauty that this country offers. The infrastructure is absolutely amazing and stunning. As you know, you can drive 70 miles per hour over here. In Pennsylvania, I found a place where the speed limit was at 90 miles per hour. So you can get through, just to give you a picture, like I drove from here to Michigan in a flat 8 hour nonstop. So, absolutely amazing infrastructure, love the beauty, but yeah. Get your driving license. Lawrenceville and Rahway is the best place to get your driving license because they have an internal circuit where you can do your test inside the DMV as opposed to driving on the road once you clear a written test. Pick up membership. AAA is around about $70 or $75 per year. Costco is $60. There is no student discount, unfortunately, but highly recommend take this Costco membership as opposed to AAA membership because along with the Costco deals, you can also shop in Costco. I have got rentals as low as $15 in Florida. And I think in Vegas also, I think Vegas was $20 per day. I prefer Alamo or Enterprise because in Alamo and Enterprise, when you book it through Costco, you can pick your car. So they have let's say if I select midsize SUV and you just pick up whatever midsize SUV is lying in the parking lot. Unlike in Avis where you're assigned to this car and you have to pick that car. So a lot of times I pick, in my midsize SUV, I got a Ford Explorer, my one trip where we drove 5,000 miles. I got a minivan, which was parked in a midsize SUV category. So a brand new one with 0 miles on it. And finally, I ended up giving it back at 5,500 miles. If you don't want to do Costco membership, use Priceline, use Kayak. They kind of give you the low prices. Rental costs at the airport are expensive compared to town and cities. In fact, if you try to book, I'm in East Brunswick. If I try to book an East Brunswick Enterprise versus an East Brunswick New Enterprise for New Brunswick, the cost is different. So remember, the price changes based on the town that is renting it out. I have put in tips in terms of getting a good car rental, because one of the things that you have to remember is that you have to pay for collision damage protection and liability protection. So that's something that you have to cover. If you try to take it up directly from the rental company, it is expensive. One of the things that I do is I take a credit card, even though I have my insurance on my own car, but I also have a credit card where I use the credit card to rent it so that if I meet with an accident, the whole collision damage, which is basically the whole car, the credit card will pay for all of that. So that's the tip. There is a cost associated to it because I think I pay around $95 per year. It's a United airline chase card, but it kind of is worth it. And your personal insurance, you can take it either from the rental company, or let's say if you're booking from Priceline, Priceline has their own liability protection, which you can book. So yeah, National Annual Park, I already talked about it, highly recommended, $80. We take it. So yeah, the collision damage protection I already talked about. Credit card. Travel during off-peak season, because off-peak season you would avoid the rush. The flight tickets are cheap or reasonable, and remember you have access to 6 airports. Sometimes we just think about EWR because it's just like 30 minutes away. But in addition to EWR, there's LGA JFK, which I know is more than an hour and a half drive. To be very frank, I have never traveled inside of the US from LaGuardia or JFK. I have mostly traveled in either through Philadelphia or IAD, which is the Washington Dulles Airport. The Washington Dulles Airport is all my West Coast trip of $20 tickets from IAD to Las Vegas. And then I also got great deals from Philadelphia to Colorado, all $40, $20, $15 tickets. Parking in Philadelphia and IAD is cheap, just outside. I usually don't do airport parking because it's expensive. Just outside that, there are hotels like Hilton or DoubleTree where you just pay $5 a day and you can keep the car. Let's say if you're going for a week's trip, you just park the car for $5 a day over there. Stay All my stays across America are in hotels. I've never done Airbnb or VRBO because we're constantly traveling. If we're not staying in a single place for more than maybe a couple of days, so it's always hotels. And one of the things that I highly recommend in hotels is look TripAdvisor, look Google reviews. I have stayed, even in motels and Lodge, but I've always gone based on reviews. If the reviews is good, you get some great deals and great stay. I mean, we've never had any problem. We've stayed in numerous hotels of all different types of brands, but always looked at reviews and of course cost. You get some really good deals. With that, I am actually done. I'm open for any questions if anyone has any.
Okay, Chris, thank you so much for that presentation. That was a lot of information, a lot of valuable information for our students. So Doris has already posted some really good questions in the chat. So I'm just going to read those and you can answer them one by one.
Sure.
First question is regarding the driver's license. Do we rely on driver's license to travel around the US? And the follow-up question is, what kind of places could you go if you did not have a driver's license?
So if you're a student who has just landed in the country, you are allowed to use your Indian or Chinese driving license or whichever country you're coming from for the first 6 months. But the key is that you have to carry your, let's assume you're coming from India, so your Indian driving license, your passport, and your I-94. So make sure you're carrying all these three with you because in case you get pulled over by a cop, you have to show all these three to him because you don't have a US driving license. I think the second question was, where can you travel once you have the driving license?
No, that question is actually, where can you travel without a driver's license?
Oh, without a driving license. Okay, without a driving license, some of the things that you could do is, of course, New York City. You have a train, you have a bus from New Brunswick. If you go into New York City, in fact, not just New York City, but there's a pickup point right here from East Brunswick as well, where Chinatown actually runs these buses. I mean, which are very reasonable, which will take you. It's a 3-day tour, which you can go to Philadelphia, Niagara Falls, Boston, which is just probably maybe 60 or 80 bucks for the whole trip. And sometimes you have these offers where it's like buy one, get your friend free or something like that. So I highly recommend that. Some of my team members who don't have cars have taken that, where they've gone to Philadelphia, they'll show you Philly, then they take you to Niagara Falls, show you Niagara Falls, then go down into Boston, then there are the Thousand Islands. There are a couple of different combinations that they show you. So I do recommend doing that.
Chris, just to follow up on that, on the bus tours, if a student chose to do that, would they be responsible for finding their own lodging, or does the
No,
bus company do
they
that?
they do the lodging as well. So it
Oh,
covers your
wow.
lodging, it covers fees to any of the the entrance fees if they're taking you to a museum. It doesn't cover tips. You have to pay for the
Okay.
tips.
Okay. Good to know. All right. The next question is a great question. It's about trip planning. So, how could one find an information on how to plan a trip? And suppose that they were planning a trip over spring break, which would be 1 week in duration. How would they choose what place to go if they only had a week to travel?
So Trip Planner, which is, if I go back, so if you do roadtrippers.com, it kind of allows you to plan places which, from New York, what would be the places to go. You could do that. If you go into Google and type in weekend getaways from New York, you would get most of the weekend getaways are either into upstate New York or into Philly or DC or New Hampshire or Vermont. They're range between under 6 hours. You can reach these places.
Okay, great. Thanks for answering those. And then another question, really relevant question for students is, considering the cost of time and money, which places, in your opinion, are the most accessible to students from Rutgers?
Is the assumption that we don't have a car as well?
No, not necessarily, but like, what are the places that you think would be of most interest or have the best scenery, or even some of the cities that you mentioned? Which one would be most accessible from Rutgers?
I think driving down to Niagara Falls, and on the way you have the Watkin Glen and also the iconic glass factory, Corning. Watkins Glen is beautiful. You just walk. You can hike right by the falls all the way. It takes your journey almost maybe 3 miles where you can walk by the falls. Beautiful Niagara Falls, absolutely breathtaking. You can go boating. Um, uh, Great place to visit. DC, Washington DC, again iconic. Philadelphia, you could club both of them. You can drive down to Philly, which is like an hour and a half from here. DC, maybe 3 hours. You could kind of do both, maybe in a couple of days. A lot of history down there as well.
Yeah, just a side comment. When you were sharing the web page that had the 10 cities that were most visited by foreign travelers, I was a little surprised that Philadelphia was not on there because there's a tremendous number of historical sites in Philadelphia, and I was a little surprised that that was not on the list.
Yeah, I think for foreigners, more than Philadelphia, it would be Washington, D.C. that they would head out to first. Unless
Right.
you have a lot of time, then maybe Philadelphia would be. Otherwise, you would just go straight to the capital. Because a lot of them may not necessarily know that the Declaration of Independence was signed in Philadelphia, that Philadelphia was the first national capital, and then it moved on to D.C. How many people know that? Like when I came, I don't even knew what Philadelphia was before I came here. For me, it was just D.C. And yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, there's another question here posted in the chat. Okay, yeah, this is actually a good question too. So you were talking earlier about making reservations, hotel reservations. What are some precautions that students would need to take when booking reservations online?
There are a lot of websites that are available online to book reservations. I personally like to book uh, reservations in a known website. When I say known website, I usually I start with TripAdvisor because that's where I get the reviews and see what the ratings are. And then once I get from there, TripAdvisor usually has the recommended websites where you could book. So most of them are like booking.com or the hotel.com, or the website. Let's say if you're doing Best Western, the Best Western website. So I would basically look up at the price, for any of these and which one gives me a best deal. Like hotels.com, if you book 10 nights with them, you get one free night. Best Western, if you book them directly with them, they usually give you gift cards. So different hotels, Hilton has a lot of points that you accumulate, and then you can claim your free night. So that's where I would do. I don't personally recommend to go to unknown websites and book because some of them could be scams, and if you lose your money, then it's just calling credit card companies and saying the fraud and all that stuff. So.
Okay, good. I appreciate that tip. Chris, if you can go back to your screen, back to your page that had the tips for travel. Yeah, there we go. I had a couple of questions related to that. Um, when students are traveling, when they're making a travel plan, um, I'm thinking specifically of if they're going to drive to the airport and fly somewhere. Like you mentioned, flying to Vegas, you can get cheap flights to Vegas and things like that. I just want to make sure I heard you clearly on this. So you said that at Philadelphia, you can park at a nearby hotel
That's right.
for $5 a day. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. Yeah, because generally the parking at airports is expensive. So
Yes,
if people are
very
looking to save
expensive.
money, that's a great tip. I didn't even know that myself that they had parking at the hotel lots. That's good to know.
Yeah, I use the app ParkWiz, Spot Hero. Those are some of the apps that you could use, and they will tell you what are the hotels nearby to the airport that is offering it. And as you book that, the same airport will also, a same hotel will also drop you off at the airport. So it's not that you have
Hmm.
to leave the car there and then figure out, oh, I have to book a taxi now to go. And then when I land back, I have to again book a taxi. No, the hotel that you're doing it, they provide you a free complimentary shuttle that will put you at the airport, and when you land, you just call them, and they'll send the shuttle to pick you up.
Okay. Okay, that's a great tip. And then my other question was about the AAA or Costco membership. So um, the Costco membership, you said they will allow you to shop at Costco, so that's obviously a benefit. But then, how do you get the deals on rental cars through Costco? That's what I had a question about.
So Costco has a website called costcotravel.com. So you go to costcotravel.com, and of course you have to enter your membership number, and then it actually allows you to choose between the following car rental companies. That is Avis, Budget, Enterprise, Alamo. So it actually, let's say if I'm going to Vegas, it basically shows me the price of these 4 car rental companies in Vegas, and I usually choose the cheapest among them, and I usually like to rent an SUV, a mid-size SUV. So it gives you a preference whether you want a large-size SUV or like a sports car, like a Mustang or something like that. So or a BMW. So you can just choose what you want.
Okay, again, that's a great tip because I know the AAA membership allows you a discount on rentals, but only through Hertz. So you don't have a choice of rental car companies to go with. So that's a really good tip. Doris, did you have any other final questions? Okay, so we're good. So I'm going to actually stop the recording at this point. Thank you again, Chris, for the presentation, and thank you for answering all those questions thoroughly. And thanks again for giving this valuable information to international students.
Sure. Thank you all for joining.